So residents of India, why it is so important to understand who is resident of India and who is not? Because the income tax is levied on the residents of India, not on the citizens of India. So whether you are citizen of India or not, that is a separate question. If you are resident over here, you have to pay tax. So this residential status we have to determine under section 6 of the Income Tax Act. So there are certain categories. We have understood different categories of persons over here. So for different person there is different rule of residential status. If you are an individual, there are three possibilities: either you can be resident or you can be non-resident, but there is one category where you can be a deemed resident also, even if you are not a resident, but income tax will make you deemed to be a resident of the nation, right? That is another category. But if you are AOP, BOI, for other people, there are only two possibilities: resident or non-resident. But for individual and HUF, these are the possibilities, that even if you are not resident, you will be deemed to be resident and you will be treated like a resident only due to certain technicalities, right? So now let's understand. Section 6 subsection 1 says about the individual that it's said to be resident in India if he satisfies any of the two conditions. Now what are these two conditions? Subsection 1 says he has been in India during the previous year for a total of 182 days or more. Now what does it mean? 182 days is nothing but half of 365 days. 365 days is a year, and out of those full 365 days, if you are remaining in India for half of the year, if you are staying in India for half of the year, that means more than 50% of the time you have stayed in India, you have spent in India, then you should be resident in India. That is what government is trying to say. So if any person, be it citizen of anywhere, if they are staying for more than 182 days in India, then they are resident in India. Simple enough, right? Then they have to pay income tax on any income in India only, right? Or if they are not staying in India for 182 days, then check whether they stay in India for 60 days or not. Now, the second condition says, or he has been in India during the 4 years immediately preceding the previous year for a total period of 365 days or more, and has been in India for at least 60 days in the relevant previous year. Then if less than 182 days, then we have to check whether the person has stayed in India for 60 days or not. If yes, then there is one more condition, that they should stay in India for 365 days in total out of the last 4 years. If just 60 days, then you have to check about the previous 4 years as well, that they should stay in India for 365 days in total. Otherwise it's not going to make any sense. Otherwise the only rule of 182 days will be there. But if not 182 days, then 60 days and 365 days in 4 years, or just 182 days, right? Now for this 60 days condition, there are certain exceptions. This 60 days condition is not applicable to all. What are those exceptions? Exceptions to 60 days rule are Indian citizens who leave India during the relevant previous year as a member of the crew of an Indian ship or for purposes of employment outside India. So somebody who is leaving India for a job in Canada, a job in UK, in Australia, anywhere, then they would have definitely stayed in India for 365 days or more in relevant 4 previous years. So they are going to be there. That is why this exception is given to them, that check them for 182 days only, forget about 60 days, because they would have been stayed in India but now they are going out. So check whether they have stayed for 60 days or not, 182 days or not. If they have stayed for 182 days, then they are resident. Otherwise consider them as non-resident. Simple. Or somebody who is working in as a crew of an Indian ship which roams around the globe. So that also makes sense. Then second condition says Indian citizen or person of Indian origin who being outside India comes to visit to India during the relevant previous. So somebody who is of Indian origin, for example NRI, somebody who was born in India but now staying outside, if they come to visit India to their family or for any damn reason to see their property, of course they may have been stayed in India for more than 365 days in last 4 years. So for them also this exemption is given, that do not check the 60 days rule for them, check only 182 days. Simple enough. Then deemed resident. Who is a deemed resident? Under section 6 subsection 1a, an individual being an Indian citizen having total income other than income from foreign sources exceeding rupees 15 lakhs during the previous year would be deemed to be resident in India in that previous year if he is not liable to pay tax in any other country or territory by reason of his domicile or residence or any other criteria of similar nature. So somebody who is understand this rule is applicable for only Indian citizens. So if somebody is an Indian citizen having a total income of more than 15 lakhs, right, they should have an income of more than 15 lakh from other than foreign sources. So if you're getting income from foreign sources, then it is not applicable for you. If you are an Indian citizen but not a resident in India, still you have an income other than the foreign sources of more than 15 lakhs, then in that situation government will say you are deemed to be a resident in India only. If you're not getting from foreign income, then where are you getting from? And you're not taxable anywhere in the world, and you have to pay tax somewhere. If you are getting income from foreign, of course you will be taxable there, but if you're getting income from not from a foreign source and still you're not paying taxes anywhere, then you have to pay to us. That is what the Indian government is trying to say with this condition, with this provision of deemed resident, right? Now there are certain things. If such individual has been non-resident in India in any of 9 out of the 10 previous year preceding the relevant previous year, or if such individual has during the 7 previous preceding the relevant previous year been in India for a period of 729 days or more. Now these are again two conditions. Resident person is one who satisfies, not an ordinary resident. What not an ordinary resident is, if somebody is resident in India, then we should check whether that particular person is ordinary or not an ordinary. So if somebody is basically somebody is an ordinary resident when he satisfies these two conditions, but when he is not ordinary, when he not satisfies any two conditions. So if such individual has been non-resident in India if any 9 out of the 10 previous years, so if you satisfy 2 years, if you are resident in India for at least 2 years out of 10, then you are ordinary. If not, then if you're just resident for 1 year, then you are non-resident. Or if this condition is not satisfied, then we check for another condition which says check for last 7 previous years if the person has stayed in India for a period of 730 days or not. If 730, to resident. If just 729, then non-resident, not an ordinary resident. Resident is there, but ordinary or not ordinary, that is what we are trying to check. Simple enough. Now there is a question. This question is for you. Just pause this video, solve it out. You will find the solution down below, but for you it has to be solved, right? Before you actually see the actual solution based on these conditions, you should try to solve by yourself whether this particular person Braitley is going to be a citizen in India or not. Now what is this condition? Braitley, an Australian cricketer player visits India for 100 days in every financial year. This has been the practice for the past 10 financial years. Find out his residential status for the assessment year 2023-24. Every year he is coming to India for 100 days, so count out whether he is a resident or non-resident. If he is resident, check ordinary or non-ordinary. I am sure he is going to be a resident because 100 days means more than 60 days, and for last 4 years if we are checking, then of course you are going to find out what resident or non-resident. You have to check if he is a resident and that condition is satisfied or not, right? 365 days in last 4 years you have to check. Second, would your answer change if the above facts relate to again an Indian citizen who resides in India and represents the Australian cricket team, so the person of Indian origin? Would it change? What would be your answer if visits India 1 in 20 days? And so for all 3 conditions you have to check, you have to see your find out the answer, and you will see the solution down below. But before seeing the actual solution, solve by yourself. Try to solve by yourself, right? Moving on. Second question again. Mr. B, a Canadian citizen, comes to India for the first time during the previous year 2018-19. During the financial year 2018-19, 19-20, 2021, 21-22 and 22-23, he was in India for 55, 60, 90, 150 and 70 days respectively. Determine the residential status for the assessment year 2023-24. This is again a question for you. This is again a challenge for you. Try to solve it by yourself. Pause this video, solve it, and then see the solution going forward. Right now, moving forward, this is the last slide for the day. Whether the following incomes are to be included in total income or not. Now what are these incomes? Why do we see it becomes important for us to understand the residential status of an individual or a person, so that we determine whether the income is taxable or not. But if income received or deemed to be received in India during any previous year If you receive something in India, or if the Indian government deems that you have received in India, even if you are saying I haven't received, but as per the government conditions you have deemed to received in India, in that case all the incomes, whether be any status of your residence, it doesn't matter. If you are earning anything from India, you have to pay tax to the Indian government, whether you are resident, non-resident, ordinary, not ordinary, it doesn't matter, right? Or the other thing is, if you haven't received but still your income has accrued or deemed to have accrued, right? Accrue means something you have, after accruing you have received, then it's fine. But even if you haven't received and it has accrued, in that scenario also your income is taxable in India, no matter what your residential status is. But the third condition is there: income accruing or arising outside India during the previous year. If it is accruing outside, right, it is not accruing in India, but it will be taxable in case of resident, even if such income is not received or brought into India during the previous year. It doesn't matter whether you have received it, whether you have brought it or not. If you are resident in India, then you have to pay tax in India, no matter from where you earn. But in case of not ordinary resident, only if such income is derived from a business controlled or a profession set up in India, otherwise no. If you're receiving it outside but the business is run in India, then you have to pay tax in India, otherwise not. And for in case of non-resident, it doesn't matter from where you are earning and where it is set up, right? That is your residential status, the entire story of residential status for an individual.